Hello, welcome to the channel. Hope you can hear me over the crickets. Hello, welcome to the channel. Not sure what that animal is. Oh, that's a cat. No telling what we might have show up here in the backyard throughout the evening. But thanks for joining me. We're going to try to go after Gamma Cygnus in the Satyr. We're going to try to add some sulfur too. I've already captured some hydrogen alpha and we're working on a narrow band image. So thank you for joining us. I've got a couple of videos I'm going to show you here that gives you a little bit of an insight into the setup that we're using tonight and a little bit of a background on what we're hoping to accomplish. So I invite you to join me in the chat. I'm trying to monitor it here. I'm going to send out a test message and make sure I'm active on the chat. And it looks like we have about 4 people viewing right now, 5 maybe, counting me. So thanks so much for joining us. Just let me know if there's something, if you have any questions or little topics you want to talk about. I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes here to get people online before I start the introductory videos. What I've already done tonight is I just confirmed the polar alignment. I'm going to show you some of the image captures that the ZWO ASI Air Pro gives you to work through that polar alignment process. I've also gone through syncing up with the mount and getting close to the field of view, but one of the things I wanted to show you tonight is how well the plate solve works with the ASI Air, as well as matching up from night to night a plate solve image so you can replicate the field of view very consistently. I've left the CCD, the CMOS camera, attached to the telescope. I'm not removing it so I don't change the angle, so I can keep the composition consistent from night to night. Hey Tim, thanks for joining us. The skies are somewhat clear. They are clear. Of course, I think we're getting, if you follow the clear sky clock, Attila Danko manages that site, and last night he's for several nights he's had the warning about the smoke from the west impacting us in the east, and he's had the NOAA cloud map, and of course West Virginia, we're right in the thick of it. He took that off last night and really the transparency was pretty good, but he did put it back on today. But it's definitely a usable sky, and I think it's a narrow band sky. So I hope you can hear me. It looks like all the audio is going out. If somebody can just give me a test saying, hey, the audio sounds good, then what I'd like to do is start the videos I have lined up for you that kind of shows you the setup that I have for tonight, and then we'll get into moving forward with our imaging progress. So if anybody's online and can send me a message saying, hey Jeff, we can hear you, all the audio's good, video's good, that would be appreciated. No, I got it on my phone, I can hear my audio, so okay, I think we're good. So let me start the first video of introduction on our setup for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello and welcome to the channel. Thank you subscribers, and if you're new to the channel, my name is Jeff and this is Jeff Ball Photography. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what's going on tonight, especially while we have some daylight. I'm going to try to talk over the air conditioners and the birds and crickets and Sounds like we might even have some cicadas out here, which we're supposed to have an infant. Sorry about that. It looks like I have a few too many objects running here on the old MacBook. I'm trying to stream this from MacBook Pro. Let me close a couple of apps and see if I can clear up some operational. I'm actually going to close Sky Safari. Okay, let's see if we can clear up some resources. Let's give that video a try. Thanks for your patience. Let's give it one more try. Hello and welcome to the channel. Thank you, subscribers. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Jeff and this is Jeff Ball Photography. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what's going on tonight, especially while we have some daylight. I'm going to try to talk over the air conditioners and the birds and crickets, and it sounds like we might even have some cicadas out here, which we were supposed to have an infestation this year, but it really didn't manifest itself. But tonight we're going to do a live stream, and thank you for joining me. It'll be an opportunity to give you a little bit of an insight into what goes into my astrophotography and some questions and answers, and just have a conversation, a casual conversation. We've had smoke from the west. I'm in West Virginia, and it's even impacted our skies. And we're finally starting to get some decent transparency. Still looks a little bit milky, but if you look back here away from the sun, back to the east, it's definitely looking better. And even though we have a fair bit of moon tonight, we're still going to try to gather some narrow band data on an object called the Gamma Cygnus region, the Butterfly Nebula, Satyr, the star Satyr, in Cygnus the Swan. So it's at a great location. It's near the zenith for me, and the moon is pretty low in the southeast, and it doesn't come up tonight until I think after midnight. So I'm hoping to get some data. I had some data last night in the H alpha channel, and I'm hoping tonight to get some in the sulfur channel. And we're going to put together a narrow band data. So I'm going to give you a lot more insight into the object that we're imaging, some of the data that we're capturing, some of the inspirational images that I look to. I want to share that with you, and some of my previous efforts in this area of the sky. But first, let me show you kind of the setup, the instruments that we're using, and how I'm going to be broadcasting tonight, if everything goes well. Fingers crossed. So thanks for joining me, and let's take a look at the image setup and some of the gear that we're going to be using. Thank you for staying with me on that introduction. That's about the best I can get on the chop. The playback's just going to be really slow. I think maybe my Mac operating system has wanted to do a update as well. So there are a lot of resources here on this. This is about a 10-year-old laptop. And I got a cat that I guess is really trying. What are you doing? Yeah, you gotta go. No. We don't need you. Go on. Go on. Okay, I got a crazy cat. So let me play the second video. That goes over the equipment that we're using tonight. And then we'll come back to live, and I hopefully won't be dealing with as much chop, but hopefully the second video plays a little bit smoother. So let's take a look at the equipment. So this is the setup that I'm leaving assembled from night to night. I'm going to leave it like this for a while. These narrow band projects take a lot of time. I got about 2.5 hours last night of the hydrogen alpha, hoping to get at least that tonight on the sulfur. I may actually even switch filters, but first let me show you what we got going on here. This is my very transportable iOptron CEM40. Please see my videos for a box opening as well as first experiences, and I can just tell you, I guess I'm getting fairly close to a 1-year anniversary with this mount, and it just continues to be impressive in its form factor. It's a very small, lightweight. I carry all of this setup outside in 4 trips. To be quite honest, I had considered doing an observatory, and the thoughts of maintaining a building and having just something else to have to provide maintenance to, when I have this solution, I can do just about all the imaging I want in the backyard with this in 4 trips. And my back really appreciates it. So the CEM40 is great. The Astro-Physics 92 Stowaway, it's about around 400, almost 500 millimeters in focal length. And then this is the Botter Vario Finder scope. What you see here, the red object, is the guide chip, the guide scope, well, the guide chip that works through the scope, and it helps keep the mount tracking the stars very accurately. My exposures are 10 minutes with these narrowband filters, and the exposures are being taken with the ZWO ASI 294 MM Pro. Now, something new that I added that I haven't had for a long time is the ZWO filter drawer. Still have the hydrogen alpha filter in there from last night. And this filter drawer, it works. And Appalachia's not real clear. Now, something that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me to work with is I do all my image capture with the ZWO ASI Air Pro. Now, this is a Raspberry Pi device that works wirelessly through to my iPad. And that's how I do image capture. But tonight's broadcast is going to be done via this laptop and the OBS streaming to the YouTube. We're going to give this a try. It may not be perfect, and I'll monitor the YouTube chat on my iPhone. But this is how the setup's going to work, and what I'm going to do is share screenshots from the iPad over to the MacBook, and this is an old MacBook, but really the MacBooks hold up very well in their performance with software updates. And this actually I upgraded to a solid state hard drive several years ago, and this thing just performs very nicely. But that's going to be the setup. We'll be monitoring our chat on YouTube as much as I can while we set things up. So the things I'm going to be going through, I might do a little bit of a how I go through the polar alignment process, although we should be fairly well polar aligned from last night. How we do plate solving and get to the object with the ASI Air Pro software. Again, unfortunately I can't stream directly. I wish I had the ability to AirPlay directly from the iPad over to the MacBook. I don't know how to do that. Maybe it is possible. But I'll be sharing it through screenshots and we'll be walking through it. And we'll certainly be monitoring the chat to have a conversation here about astronomy, astrophotography, any topic that you want. But this is our setup for tonight. I'm hoping to get, like I said, about 2.5 hours of the sulfur filter. I'll see how it goes. I might change back to hydrogen alpha if the data is really being impacted by the probably about 3/4 moon that we're going to have up here a little bit later this morning. So thanks so much for joining me, and let's get back to the live stream. Hey, thank you so much for being patient through that. It worked all day today, and I guess just I'm throwing too many resources here at this old laptop I have. This is an old MacBook Pro from, oh goodness, I think it was 2012 maybe. It might even be earlier than that. But thank you for putting up with that choppy video playback. I really appreciate it. But I hope the message was came across clear. I thought I lost my cat. My neighborhood cat. It's a neighborhood cat. It's not my cat, but I know what he does. He comes and meows at my cat, which is on the inside through the sliding doors. So we got that going on tonight. But if you just joined us, what I've done is I've kind of gone through some preliminary steps here tonight. Let me show you what I'm working on. The area is the Gamma Cygnus region, and I'm going to start Sky Safari because I closed it to help preserve some resources. And when we're around a moon, like we're going to have over the next few nights, I really resort to the narrowband imaging. The moon still can compromise even the best narrowband imaging, and I apologize because the air conditioner, I'm not too far from our air conditioner unit. That's going to come and go as the night progresses. But I wanted to do this live, try to have a live chat. If you're joining us, let me get this. I do most of my processing on an iMac Pro. I don't do any field work on a laptop anymore, and that's kind of why I have an older laptop. But this is my field of view for the, if you were able to pick out of that choppy video, the ASI Air 290, I'm sorry, the ASI 294 MM Pro on the Astro-Physics 92mm Stowaway, which is according to my plate solving that I get on the ASI Air Pro, it's showing a 490mm focal length equivalent. So this is our field of view. It's a fairly tight field of view, but what I wanted to share with you is the area here. Now this is a Rob Gendler image, and of course this shows you the full extent of the nebulosity. And so we are getting some of what is called the Butterfly Nebula around the star Satyr or Gamma Cygnus. And we are extending down this dark lane just a touch. And coming up, we're getting that open cluster. Let's see if I can get back to the... So this is the cluster here. NGC 6910. It's a 7th magnitude open cluster in Cygnus. It's 3,700 light years away, and the apparent size is 10 arc minutes. I'm going to go back to the butterfly area, known by the proper name Satyr, the bright magnitude -2.2 star, also lies at the center of IC 1318. The nebula features a complex of stars, dust clouds, and glowing nebula along the plane of our Milky Way. It spans over 3 degrees or 6 full moons. It includes the open star cluster 6910. Gamma Cygni is not actually part of the nebula. It's a foreground star located between us and the nebula. Some distances for the star placed at around 750 light years away, while estimates for the nebula, the IC 1318, range from 2,000 to 5,000 light years. In any case, the Gamma Cygni Nebula is located deep in the Orion arm of the galaxy. Hey, D Fresh 750. Thanks for the question on mosquitoes. So far, we're good to go. It's a very comfortable night here. Last night was a little bit warmer. But no mosquitoes so far, so knock on wood. Now I'm only going to stay out. What I'm hoping to do is share with you kind of my setup here, what we've done for tonight. Let me show you some. So that's the area we're going for. Let me show you some of the inspiring images and some of the things that I've done with this region. If you haven't been to my website in a while, I invite you to stop by. I've really done a major update, done some new organizations of the page. When you open the page, when you get there at first, you'll have this chat opportunity here. You can minimize that very easily, just clicking on there. But that just gives you a real-time view to engage with the website. Hey, Heavens Declare, you know, we still have some smoke. There's still some transparency issues, so it hasn't fully cleared yet. I was hoping, we had a pretty good amount of rain yesterday. I was hoping that would help, but it's still, the transparency is definitely impacted, so I'm not sure how good quality this would be. And D-Fresh, yes, eventually I know those mosquitoes will be eating me alive as well. But I wanted to show you, if you go to the website and you're doing, go to the Astrophotography Digital RGB section, and you can see all the latest. So this is an image I took up at Calhoun Dark Sky Park in June, and this is of the Gamma Cygnus area, and you can see the Butterfly Nebula here, and of course the star, Gamma Cygnus, and then this is the nebulosity. We're trying to really get a higher resolution on, as well as narrowband imaging. So let me show you some of the narrowband imaging influences that really I love using Astrobin. Astrobin is, if you haven't been there, that's a great place to get technical details and inspiring images from others. This is my page on the Astrobin site. And what I wanted to show you, I bookmark images that really are influencing kind of my compositions. Thank you, Heavens Declare. I really appreciate it. It's just trying to share the beauty of creation with others. So I really like your handle on YouTube. It's a great name. So this is by Alex Roberts. This is not my image. I want to be clear. This is by Alex Roberts, and he posted this. And so this is a narrowband image, very inspiring for me. You can see just the beautiful palette narrowband imaging really gives you the opportunity to kind of pick your own color palette in a way. And this is just a technically excellent image, as well as a beautiful artistic image. So that was a great one by Alex, and that's definitely one of the inspiring images that's caused me to really pursue this. This is another interpretation, another narrowband interpretation of the Butterfly Nebula, Gamma Cygnus. This is by Eric Coles. Eric does great work. I really love Eric. Follow him on AstroBin. And another was one. Here's another really nice color palette from John Kroon on AstroBin. I love this color palette. It's very understated. Has those hues to the. I love it when you have a 3-color representation. I mean, that's the best of trying to really get the best out of the narrowband imaging, is to have at least three primary colors represented. And these tea color tones he has here in the central part of the region with the greenish yellow highlights. Love it. So that's a great Gamma Cygnus. So these are the influencing images for me. It's technically a great image, well captured. Now, one of the challenges I have with my images is the filters that I use. I get some pretty good reflections off of that bright center star Satyr. So let me show you. This is not going to be very impressive because this is the data that I had last night. But this is the raw image, just one image, H alpha, from last night. And you can see what we're trying to get at here. This is the star. Now it doesn't, I don't get a whole lot of reflection on the H alpha on the Satyr, but I do with O3 in particular. And then if you're an imager and you're here to kind of learn a little bit about the ZWO-ASI air interface, well, we're going to go through that with you a little bit as well. So this is the image during capture that we see, and this is the image just presented in a portfolio presentation, but this is all done in the app. And the app does an auto stretch of the data, so I don't manipulate this data at all. This is the histogram you see represented here, and one of the key things I look for here is the average analog digital units that are presented. I got 2400 right here, and that's a pretty good, that's a 10-minute exposure. Let's see here. Oh, hey, Frank. Frank, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. You know, I don't think I'm qualifying for the Super Chat yet. I have to have more viewing hours to really qualify for that. So, but I thank you. Thank you for the sentiment. I really appreciate the support. Let's see here, Defresh. I just wanted to get my 294 MC Pro figured out. First light images came out with quite a blue tint. Okay. Haven't revisited yet. Okay, that I'm guessing you worked them up in. I'm not sure what software you use to work up your images, but definitely we could talk about that offline, Defresh. I've had great success with the MC Pro, and I've worked mine up through PixInsight, so I do all of the image calibration through PixInsight, and I've not noticed a hue that I obviously couldn't be corrected, but I mean, you know, I'm always available one-on-one, and if you had trouble figuring something out, I'd be there to help you. Okay, but thank you so much for the question. Let me show you some of the things that I've done tonight to try to get up and running. Now, if you recall, if you were able to stick through the introductory video, you'll know that I don't use the laptop for image acquisition, but I use an iPad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of show you some iPad captures. Now, one of the key features that the ASI Air Pro does is really assist you with the polar alignment routine. Now last night I polar aligned, and I didn't, this is just opening up the scope tonight, turning it on, going through the first plate solving, and then doing polar alignment. And you can see I'm still, I basically look for a happy face. So I have an indifferent face here on my polar alignment. And I know you can't probably see the numbers on how far off it is. What is that? 1 minute? 1 minute each way. So it's 1 minute. And so you go through the iteration process. And in this case, it took me 4 minutes. I got a happy face. You can see, does it give you the final total error? About 28 arc seconds. And you get fireworks and like riding a motorcycle, very fast. I've found that I can't, once I get the smiley face and I get down to those arc seconds, it really becomes very tedious with the corrections that I have on the iOptron CEM40. And this for a 10-minute exposure, this is all I need in terms of polar alignment accuracy. I used Siri. Don't have Pix Insight. I'll have to chat online. That'd be great. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Or offline. Sorry. Yeah, we'll get together. It's probably just need to work on the calibration process and just figure out what software you're using there. So what I want to do now that I've verified, oh, the other thing that I did while you guys were waiting is just did a focus routine. This is the focusing system that ZWASI Air provides, and basically you're referencing two charts. This upper chart, you're basically looking for the peak of the graph to come lower. The bottom graph, you're looking for the peak of the chart to get higher. This gives you a full width, half maximum reading in a couple of different type of presentations. And this helps you really dial in the focus. I think, let me see here. Yeah, this is where I finally dialed in the focus on those objects. And this is all zoomed in on preview images, and I think I was taking a 2-second image here. So this actually happens very quickly. There's it's a very simple process to use, and I do manual focus. I do not have an auto focuser. I just image with too many instruments, and I just didn't want to really ever mess with that. So let me show you where we are right now. See if you can read some of these numbers. This is our current viewing situation. Satyr, the star Gamma Cygnus, is in the middle. You can see that I have a camera, primary camera selected. That's the, oops, sorry about that. This primary camera right here, that's the 294mm Pro. You've got the auto guider. This is the 120mm. I'm sorry, the 120 mini scope, and then the mount, it's talking to the CEM40. Now I go with the old profile. Last time I tried to image, there was a new profile added, and I had some trouble with it. So I went with the CEM40 old profile, and everything seems to be working out well. So I think I'm showing 10:30 on the clock, and I think we're getting pretty close to dark. So I want to get this last step in the process. So here we are. This is kind of our live view. What was this? A 5-second image, I think, just to do a plate solve. So you can say, plate solve the image. What are you doing? The cat's back. You gotta go. Yeah. And there it says sync mount. So I click sync mount, and the sync succeeded. If I wanted to, I could use in my case, I use Sky Safari Pro, And I'll show you. If I use Sky Safari Pro on the laptop, this is exactly, after I sync, it shows me where my field of view is and exactly how I'm synced up with the sky. I've come to the same conclusion. Hey Andy, I've come to the same conclusion on the smiley face. Yes, even with my Astro-Physics Mach1 Go-To, just the adjustments get, in terms of the sensitivity of that polar alignment routine, it just gets to be, they're still pretty coarse adjustments. And so I'm again, if this were back in the film days, I'm old, guys, and back in the film days, we literally did probably, you got pretty efficient with doing a drift alignment within maybe 30 minutes, maybe 20. If you were really good, you could do it in 20. And that was to really dial in your polar alignment for a 1 hour single exposure. So yeah, these short exposures, whatever you decide to go with, I go with 10-minute exposures on my narrow bands. I go with, we're hearing some weird noises here tonight. I go with 5 minutes generally and unfiltered, depending on the optical system. I might go 2 minutes with my RASA, but those are just my exposure times. I know there's data to support shorter exposures, but it eventually becomes an overwhelming file management system for me, and I'm used to a longer exposure. The SR Pro seems to be quite a nice imaging controller. I see a lot of people using them. Hey D-Fresh, yeah, it's been a life changer for me. Really up until about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I was exclusively a DSLR imager, and I got to the point, years ago I did use an SBIG ST10 XME camera with a laptop out in the field. I just got to where I don't want a laptop in the field. I still go to a dark sky site. If you have a permanent setup, an observatory, then by all means, remote observatory, obviously you have to be laptop, desktop based, and that's a whole different ballgame. But if you are portable and you go to dark skies, you have an iPad. I use my iPhone on my old, I use 2 ASI Airs at the same time at a dark sky location. Have both the Pro and the original. I'll use my phone with the original, and I'll put my iPad with the Pro and image on 2 different systems. So I'm doing 2 ASI Airs at the same time, simultaneously, from a dark sky side. So I'm a big advocate for the Pro, or the original ASI Air. The Pro gives you, I think, the biggest advantage are those power options. You can run a lot of power accessories and run power directly to your camera, cooler, and things like that. Speaking of cooling, let me go back to where we are in our camera situation. So a couple of things that you may or may not be able to see is, I think I got cooling. There we go. Cooling. Oh, my finger's on it. We should be at about 59%, and we should be at minus 10 degrees Celsius. So that's our cooling for the night. I've had pretty good success cooling at that level in these type of conditions. And now when you go into the camera mode, you have cooling is one of the things you can set up. You can see I'm at minus 10. Then you also have gain. Now I set my gain at medium gain at 120. That's what my darks are at. This is with the MM Pro in bin 1 mode. You can see there that the plate solve did show you it's a 490 millimeter focal length with the combination with the 294 MM Pro. So it's getting dark. Here's what I want to do. I want to do a plate solve. Now, this is what's cool. I run a USB supplemental drive here, and I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up a file management system. So I'm going to go in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a file from last night. I'm going to go down the middle of the list here, and it'll load the file from last night. So this is last night's hydrogen alpha SADR image. Now you can see down at the bottom there are a couple of options. If you can read that, there's a go to button down there. The bottom on the third from the left. So when I click on that go to, it says it does a plate solve for that image. This will take a few seconds. I don't know where my cat went. As I look up at the sky, of course, I've been looking at a lot of bright light, but it's not terrible. We'll see how the first image. If you want to hang in there with me, I will capture one image. Goodness, this is taking a long time to plate solve. Normally, it doesn't take this long. See, still plate solving. This is a little bit longer than usual. I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is I just thought it was going to be a comfortable night out tonight, and I'm in the backyard. I'm hoping to get out to a dark sky here in maybe another week. It looks like we've got a nice string of weather coming, and I'm hoping to get up to Calhoun County Dark Sky Park. If you haven't been there, if you haven't seen the video I put together on that park, I encourage you to check it out. I've got a couple of speaking, teaching opportunities if you're interested. I'm going to be at Watauga State Park on Labor Day weekend. We're going to do a couple-hour session on all things astrophotography. Yeah, my plate solving didn't work. That's very unusual for this situation. And then I'm going to also be presenting, where's the other one? Oh, Calhoun County Dark Sky Park. They're going to have a star party in October. I believe it's maybe that 10 through 13, somewhere around there. But I'm going to do I'm going to do two sessions, one on Saturday and one on Sunday, or one on Friday, one on Saturday, I think. So I invite you to check that out. So my plate not solved. Let me try another image. Thanks for being patient with me. That's very unusual. Hey D-Fresh, I'm over in Huntington, West Virginia, over in the tri-state area of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio. But I'm a member of the Novak group, and I go to Spruce Knob whenever I can. Well, darn it, that doesn't look like it's going to plate solve. Let me show you another resource. So if I can't plate solve, what I'll do is I have SADR actually pretty close. Now there's what I just turned on was a targeting tool that you can use while you're imaging. And what's cool is I know SADR needs to be just a little bit low in the frame. So what I did, I held my finger on the screen, and you can see it gives me an icon to go. The scope will literally, when I touch that again, the scope will go to that location that I touched on the screen. So if you're not familiar with ZWO, ASI Air, and all of that, it will validate that it's being centered properly. And that's all with the touch of a button. And I went the wrong way. I raised it instead of lowered it. So I'm going to have to go put the icon up above the star. Sorry about that. So yeah, let's see how this works. Just needed to lower it. And there we go. I'm probably just a little too low. This really can get down to micro adjustments. So this is a nice, this point and go to option while you're in a preview mode on the ZWO ASI Air is really nice. So that's about where I want it. So now what I'm ready to do is get the auto guider working. Now, last night you have to do what's called a calibration, and anytime you change a configuration. So there's my calibration from last night, and literally nothing has changed from last night. So I am not going to change that calibration at all. I'm going to hit the rotating arrows there, and it'll give me the image of stars in the field. I hit this icon, the bullseye icon, and then it starts to find multiple stars and will start to automatically auto guide. That multi-star auto guiding is really pretty fantastic. Then you can see you got over on that left side the axis showing you how the guiding is progressing. I like to let the auto guiding bring the star back to the center line. I got a 1 second exposure. It's a little bit short. I like to have a little bit longer exposure. And what I do is I turn the aggressiveness on both the right ascension and the declination down. It's only doing a 20% correction of the calculated error. It's better not to be aggressive. Don't over guide the seeing conditions. Just let your stars settle out, and don't try to be aggressive and guide against the seeing. But let me see what our numbers are. Right now we're at 32 arc seconds and 29 arc seconds. That's probably very optimistic, but I'm going to stick with it. And then the next thing I do is we go into what's called the auto run mode. And auto run gives you the option to set up your pre-planned imaging session. Yeah, D-Fresh, Spruce Knob, yeah, that whole area, that's my favorite place on Earth. So it's definitely worth the visit. And if you're not a member of Novak, I highly encourage you to join them, and so you can really take advantage of their members-only weekends that happen during new moon weekends. They start those, I believe, maybe in April or May, and they go all the way through to October. And so it's a great club. You can do a lot virtually with them now. That's one of the silver linings of COVID is they've increased a lot of their virtual programming. And I can take advantage of it being over here in Huntington, West Virginia. Andy was thinking of you when we were driving back to it on Sunday. We stayed overnight in Huntington. Oh, okay. Yeah, Andy. I hope you had a nice stay. Can't remember when the rains hit, but hopefully you guys had good travels. And so this is the setup if you're not familiar with it. So what you do is you just set up your imaging session for the night. Here's your sequence. So I'm going to do light frames. I'm going to select 600 seconds, and I'm going to be overly optimistic here. I'm just going to select 30 sessions. I know that's not right, but that way everything keeps going. Even when I pause it, I can do it. I'm going to image at bin 1. Now, if you've seen my videos on the bin 1 option on the MM Pro, you'll know what I'm talking about. When it just gives you higher resolution. It does compromise the dynamic range slightly, but I have not found that to be a problem in imaging. So that's my imaging sequence for the night, and that is good to go. So I'm going back to the main page. I'm just checking out my auto guider. You have the auto guider graph up in the top, and everything looks good. And when that looks good, all I have to do is hit this button right here, and that starts that imaging sequence. So we got 10 minutes till the first image comes in. Oh, to Illinois, okay. Yeah, check them out, D-Fresh. It's a great astronomy group. It's probably one of the best astronomy clubs in the country. Very active, great membership, supportive, a lot of projects going on. A great imaging resource for you as well. So if you're interested, that's pretty much the program I had for you. I just wanted to get to the point where I was capturing my first image. If you want to hang with me for 10 minutes, I'll show you the results of the first sulfur image of the Satyr region. But if not, I thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for coming out tonight. I apologize for the choppiness of the video, but that's just a hardware limitation. I'm really trying to find a way to broadcast live, but being that I use this the ZWASI Air Pro for my imaging capture, I'm on an iPad. I'm not on a desktop laptop. So, but I like being out under the stars, and it really is quite a nice night. It's probably not perfect transparency. I think we got a moonrise somewhere after midnight. But thank you for joining me, and I'll stay on, and I'm going to stay on until I complete this image, and I'll show everybody what the first sulfur image looks like. So if you don't know, what we're doing is we're using very specific filters, and I've covered this in another video where we're isolating the bandwidth that helps do a lot of things. It helps cut through some light pollution. It helps add contrast. I think artistically and creatively, the narrow band imaging versus RGB, I think it's wide open. It's open to whatever interpretation you want. I don't think you have to scientifically be a slave to any particular color representation, although I do like the Hubble palette, the SHO palette. I do like the WHO palette occasionally. I've done a lot of processing. Matter of fact, if you're with me still, what I'll do is, let me show you some of the things I've really been working on. I actually pulled some of my lesser high quality material off, but this is the Astro Narrow Band color page on my website, and I really reworked many of these images. This is one I was really particularly fond of, and this goes back to a Hubble palette. This is the Cone Nebula. Took this last winter. This is on the Rasa, and with the Cone Nebula with the Christmas tree cluster, all in monoceros. And as you can see, it just has a great field of nebulosity, and it really, I apologize for this cat. I do not know whose cat it is. Really don't even know where you are. Where are you? There you are. Oh, it's just a kitten. Oh, you need to go home. I know. Goodness sakes. Yeah, it's just a little kitten. Oops. Sorry, Andy. Thank you for letting me know that. I forgot. Let me go back to screen capture. Okay. Thank you, Andy. Hopefully, yes. Yes, D-Fresh, I know. You don't have to tell me. I'm generally lucky to make it through Final Jeopardy in the evening. Okay, Andy. Hopefully, there we go. I'm seeing it now on the screen. Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate you calling that to my attention. So this is the a revisit. I've come up with a whole new workflow. If you're an imager, I'm going to kind of publish my workflow. Although, look, I don't come up with anything original in workflow. I pull from the masters, and I'm going to share with you all of those masters that I reference. I think it's very important to have a mentor and a master to look to help guide you in your imaging. And if you need some help, just let me know. But this is that reprocess. Very happy with this image. This is the Cone Nebula up here. This is on the Rasa with the MM Pro using the hydrogen alpha, sulfur, and O3 filter. This is your Christmas tree cluster, and this is Monoceros. This is your Fox Fir Nebula in here. I know I can't show you a very high resolution here, but this looks great. I think it's a great print. This is some data I revisited. This is data I used from the remote telescope. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I know the cat's just right here. He's just a little kitty. I have a security camera that I can check throughout the night, just to see what events trigger the camera. And we have several cats who visit our back door looking for our cat, in addition to the deer. But this is the Eta Carina Nebula. If you've never seen this, I highly recommend it. And a great place to see it is potentially from the Winter Star Party. If you've not been to that, I encourage you to check that out. But this is data I used from a remote telescope positioned down in Australia. And this is the hydrogen alpha O3 sulfur combination. And what's so cool is this is, I believe, just your standard Hubble palette presentation. This, I think, was an SHO presentation. You can just be so creative with this narrow band, and then this is just a crazy interpretation I went with. What I really love is you can separate these ionized areas out relative to their bandwidth when you start to get into 3-color separation. So the palette is intriguing, but my goal there was to really show the 3 colors represented. And I kind of used the same type of approach on the Sol Nebula here. And this is Rosette. Now this is captured with the dual narrow band STC filter on a color camera. You were talking D-Fresh about your MC Pro. This is an MC Pro capture with a dual band camera, and probably there was a fair amount of moon that night. And but it really is. You can use these single narrow band filters like the dual STC filter on a color camera. And so that's kind of the latest update on the narrow band filters that I'm working on. And we are down to about 2 minutes. Of course, the narrowband filters also translate very nicely to coming up with some pretty cool black and white. Now, this is just the hydrogen alpha of M8. I'm hoping to add more data. One of the challenges in imaging from my location is I don't get below 0 degrees to the south. And so I have to access all of these southern objects from a remote location. So this is from if you didn't see my Deer Lick Astronomy Village video, I encourage you to check it out. This is from that Deer Lick Astronomy Village trip. And this is a starless interpretation of that M8. And this is a starless interpretation of M16. And I'm hoping to add, this is all just H-alpha data. I'm hoping to add O3 and sulfur data to these in the future to have a nice narrow band. This is just a luminance capture of the NGC 891, and I'm hoping to add color to this in the future. This is a starless jellyfish, IC 443, I believe. Yeah, 443 in hydrogen alpha. I really like that. Again, just hoping to add more color to that in the future. And this is, I love the starless with the 294 mm Pro. The resolution and clarity is so good with that. And it really allows you to remove the stars cleanly. And this is California Nebula in that starless representation. This is that Cone Nebula Christmas tree cluster starless hydrogen alpha. And this is the Cedar Blad 214 with the overall, this all nebula here is called SH2 171, starless version of that. Another representation of the hydrogen alpha data of the nebula, the Sol Nebula. I might revisit this processing on the, this is an older Cone Nebula, and you can see gear, technology are a lot better. This was earlier and still learning all the processes. So actually this is, I need to look at this data. This is pretty close to my field of view, and for tonight, and with the hydrogen output, that's older equipment. So we have our first image. Let's see what that's looking like. Well, there's not much, and that's what you'll. Let me switch back here. Sorry about that. Now you remember what things looked like. Yeah, let me make sure. Yeah, so things are very subtle. There's when you remember, that's the the sulfur. Remember the hydrogen alpha. That's the hydrogen alpha. Same exposure time. That just shows you there's just very little on the sulfur, but you still need it to complete the data set. There's probably a little bit, I can see a little bit of nebulosity right in there, but it's still critical to obtain that data so you have the color balance. So I was hoping there was more nebulosity in there than that, but the sulfur is very thin, very light. And again, I might revisit all of this when we get a little bit clearer transparency, but I don't think that's technically the problem here. I just think it's a low imaging. Let me see if I can, just to show you, I have some of the O3 data. Yeah, it's pretty thin too. It's very subtle. You're not going to be able to probably see it on this screen, but you can see just a little bit of nebulosity down in this region here. But just wanted to host a session tonight. It's really great conditions. I'm going to go in and see how the Olympics are progressing. And I wanted to say thank you all for joining me. Hey, ECP. Thank you, ECP. You're always the best. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, D-Fresh, I know. But you'll be amazed as to the contribution that those other channels will make, even though the hydrogen alpha always has the most impressive raw signal. But the other channels, there's data there. It's very hard to see in this type of a presentation off of a iPad raw data. But they will contribute. They'll contribute to star color, and they'll contribute to background nebulosity. So you have to, it'll probably take me a month or two to work up the data and to really get all of the data I think is appropriate. Hey, thanks, Andy. Thanks so much for joining us. You all have a great week. Thanks, Charlie. Hey, thank you, ECP. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Heavens Declare. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let me know if there's something else you'd like to see. If you have any other questions, talk to me one-on-one, or my email is always online. So I'm going to sign off. Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Clear skies. Get out to a nice dark sky site when you get a chance. Take care.